Hello. Welcome, everyone, throughout this great expanse called Earth. This is the WCEG Talk Radio Network. We are the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. Our goal is to make you a little bit more informed than you were before you tuned in. Citizens of the world, this is definitely the new WCEG. We are featuring new content and new formatting. This means more people will be finding more to listen to and more ways to access us than before. I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. Today is March 13th, 2023, and you are tuned in to Issues and Answers with your host, moi, Norman A. Carter Jr. Now, you may subscribe to us free on your YouTube channel by just typing in WCEG. You know, you have that channel on your live network, on your TV. If you have YouTube, it's very easy to do. You may also like or follow us on Facebook. Yes, you may, and on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. In addition, we have new platforms for access to our programming. You may download our free mobile apps for your cell phones by going to the Apple Store and search for WCEG Talk Radio for iOS, Apple iPhones, and iPads. You can get us on your Apple Watch. Just search for WCEG Network there. And for Android and mobile phones, we haven't forgotten about you. Just go to your Google Play Store and search for WCEG Talk Radio. Now, let me just give this little disclaimer. The topics and the opinions are those of the show host and my guest, and not the WCEG Network. So leave my boss alone. Ladies and gentlemen, listeners, this is Women's History Month. And it's March the 1st through March 31st every year. Now, why is Women's History Month so important? And we have some a special guest that will be joining us soon, that will be giving us more information about Women's History Month. But let me just give you a little lead into that. The contributions of women through the years have often gone unappreciated and forgotten, but each year in March, Women's History Month is a time for reflection, appreciation, and celebration. Women's History Month is an important time to recognize contributions, both large and small, that have changed our lives for the better. I'm a witness. Women's History Month means celebrating women's accomplishments and the contributions that they have made to make life better for others. Most women history makers equip, empower, and encourage not only women, but men also, and the community to believe that they can achieve. Women's History Month is a celebration of women's contributions to history, culture, and society, and has been observed annually in the month of March in the United States since 1987. The International Women's Day, a little offshoot of that, is a global holiday celebrated annually on March 8th to celebrate the cultural, political, and socioeconomic achievements of women. It is also a focal point in the women's rights movement, bringing attention to issues such as gender equality, reproductive rights, and violence and abuse against women. My guest today is Ms. Juliana Njoku. She is the Equal Rights Amendments Chair of the Georgia chapter of the National Organization for Women. She is a highly sought after social impact strategy consultant, public speaker, and moderator. She is known for her passionate insight and advocacy for creative solutions to social changes. Ms. Njoku is a principal strategy consultant for Sapphire Global Solutions Incorporated and founder of Workforce Strong Incorporated. She is the current treasurer of the Georgia National Organization of Women and chair of the Georgia Now Economic Justice Committee. Ms. Njoku served as an administrator of performance management and strategic planning for the city of Indianapolis, Indiana for not 1, not 2, but 3, but 10 years. And her career also includes working for the United Nations for both the Peace and Security Division of the UN Women and the UNDP.HIV/AIDS division, respectively. She has been featured on several news publications, including the Washington Post and the Baltimore African American. She has also been featured on the Black News Channel, The Kelly Wright Show. She is a regular commentator on local and international media outlets, providing insight and analysis on social and economic topics. Welcome, Ms. Njoku. I hope I haven't left out anything.
I was almost wondering who you were introducing.
Thank you. We are so appreciative of not only your presence here, but your accomplishments for Georgia Now and so many other causes. I mean, your work at the UN, United Nations, in furtherance of women's issues, that had to be exciting for you.
Yes, it was. Studying at the University of Maryland, I was a government politics major, but I also majored in conflict and peace management. So I often tell people all the time, whenever you see that footage where all the people are leaving out of New York, 9/11, post 9/11, see all the cars on one side of 95. And you see that funny little lone car driving on the other side of everybody home. And so that was my little Honda, because that was my chance. I started working at the UN just days after the city opened up post 9/11. And It was an amazing experience to learn that, peace is not the absence of conflict, which most people think it is. And people say, I want peace. They think of peace as serenity or even death, just nothing going on but the rest. But true peace in a society is not the absence of conflict, but truly is the management of it. And that's what allows people to feel peace when they're here in the United States, because if something happens to you, you can make a call to a police officer, you can go to a hospital, you can find a road, you can seek food through a grocery store. Remove all of our social constructs of what actually makes us feel at peace with ourselves communally, and you would be in perpetual conflict. And that's what you see in many parts of the world. So it was a great honor for me to go into the city at that time and to be able to serve at the UN, knowing that thousands of people apply every day to the United Nations, but I was very honored to be a part of both the Peace and Security Division as well as the HIV/AIDS Division.
And you serve, I guess, similar duties in Indianapolis?
No, but I tell people all the time, I said I have several degrees, but there's no degree that I use more than my certification in conflict and peace management. I use that in every job, but not every job I use every degree. But for the city of Indianapolis, it was another great honor to serve. I served 2 governors, 3 mayors while I was there, and to be able to build out new departments that actually dealt with performance management, that actually dealt with sustainability, how to make sustainable cities, and to participate in things like the Super Bowl and the advancement of many of the new things that were coming to Indianapolis. And some of the great innovations there. Indianapolis is a really unique city in the way it works. And it's very similar to Georgia. It's a Municode city. So it has different townships that are all like feeling like their own private cities. There's 9 of them. And you have to learn the culture in it. But when you serve a Municode city, it prepares you for any city, because you have to serve cities that have many villages. So
Okay.
the west side of Indianapolis is nothing like the south side of Indianapolis. Central Indianapolis is nothing like the north side, not like Pike Typhon. And you have to spend the time to know the people to be able to provide good service. And that's where I really got a chance to hone my capacity as a strategic planner and a person that's very much so into people strategies. How do you make cities work? Building it, yes. Structuring it, yes. Putting certain amenities and needs, yes. But at the end of the day, the difference between a broken city and a great city is its people. And you need to respect the strategies for that.
I think they could use you here in Atlanta right now with the conflict they have between the city and the Buckhead section. Yes, your skills are greatly in need. Believe me.
Oh.
Yes, greatly in need. This has been a busy year for now, especially the Georgia chapter. Yes. Can you give our audience some insight as to your recent activities? I know that this month has been really hectic.
Yes, it's a super busy month, and it's a month of sort of awakening. You know, one of the things that's not really highly invested in the United States, but actually is invested globally, is civic education. The concept of civic education coming down from generation is sometimes lost in our celebrations like 4th of July or Independence Day, which end up being barbecues and family and not really the understanding of what's happening civically around the nation. So this month, March, and this year, 2023, actually marks the 100th year anniversary of women's fight, challenge, push for equity under the law. Now, when I go to women and I tell them that you know that you're not in the Constitution, and really there are no discriminatory protections really built into the Constitution, everybody thinks that I'm making that up. So I always have to start, and this month has been a real point of me going around with several members of the National Organization of Women, my co-chair, Sharon J. Hill, of course, our president, James. And for me personally, when I'm speaking to people, I first like to dispel the difference between a right and a privilege. Now, most people believe that the privileges you have are actually rights. The brochure said it's a right, you know, it felt like a right, you had it for a long period of time. Just like with many women who have the right to choose what happened to their bodies for 50 years, they found out with the Dobbs decision, with the reversal of Roe versus Wade, that was actually a privilege. And it's not a right, because a right is something that you get by nature of your birth. Okay. Human rights is your right that you were born as a human, and therefore as a society, you have certain enumerated rights. And that's the power of the Constitution. If you're not written into the foundational documents of any city that you live in or any nation that you live in, you are gaining privileges by being there, but you're not gaining rights. So a lot of people are starting to wake up to the realities, especially now that the courts is looking at such things like affirmative action, which can be rolled back again, another thing that we thought was right. Also, even same-sex marriage rolled back. Even the idea of many of our privacy laws, which is what it takes or what you give up as a privilege in order for people to govern your body. See, HIPAA guards people from governing my body and your body. But once we figure out that we're not written into the Constitution and therefore we can lose that privilege, HIPAA has to go, and then the government of your body becomes a matter of public knowledge. So when people think, oh, it's only happened to women, it's only happened on an abortion scale because we like to create a demonizing figure, you know, demonizing woman out here using this for birth control. But we forget that actually reproductive rights also have to do with young girls who've gone through incest and rape, have to do with women trying to survive pregnancies that can kill them, have to do with privacy laws that affect men and women, because those have to be rolled back for the police to see what you did with your body or didn't do with your body. As soon as I make it clear to people the difference between a right and a privilege, and the idea that a lot of the things that your privileges are now being taken up to higher courts and are being rolled back, and it's going to affect all of us, both men and women, then the conversation goes to why is it taking 100 years to recognize 167.5 million people living in the United States, because that's the amount of women and counting that live in the United States. 167.5 and counting are knocking at the door of just being recognized as human beings, as persons capable of having the rights. We're capable for war. We command industries like healthcare, education, hospitality. We're capable to pay taxes. We're capable to do a lot of different things, but for some odd reason, the Congress is holding up actually fully affirming women as women's personhoods in this nation, which actually not internationally really puts a question mark to what we describe as American democracy. So it's been a very busy month. There have been hearings that have been going on. A lot of people's arguments within those hearings kind of bring social issues into the just plain facts. 167 million people in this country, people. Everything else ends up being a marker of politics. It's not to be mixed with anything. It's not to be married to anything. This is not an LGBTQ issue. This is not even a reproductive rights issue. It's just simply, will you recognize 167.5 million women who contribute to this country every day as people and provide them equal protection under the law? That's the question. Seems so easy to answer, but you will be amazed if you're watching these hearings, how many people want to strangle that into a projection of an America that puts masculinity against femininity. That's not the question. I've been working very hard at that.
I was amazed because I learned a lot in preparation for this program, because I made certain assumptions, and I don't think I'm by myself, because I thought that the ERA was a done deal. Never realizing, like way back when Phyllis Schlafly put a wrench into everything. I mean, this was on the way to becoming law back in 1972.
Yep.
And she put a wrench in it, and then she gained, I guess it's basically, she was the Madeleine Mary O'Hare of the Equal Rights Amendment. Yep. What Madeleine Mary O'Hare did for prayer in schools, Phyllis Schlafly did for the ERA, which is just
and all
amazing.
she did is do what people are doing now. In 1972, and thank God that the chair of the Congressional Committee pointed this out, she made it an issue of same-sex bathrooms. She used a social issue that people socially were not comfortable with, and dragged it into a question that was just a very plain question. Is half your population going to be excluded from your foundational document or not? Very easy question, right? But when you start dragging it into social issues that people are uncomfortable with, and then playing out scenarios that haven't even happened yet. I mean, at the hearing this past month, and I invite everybody to go look at the congressional hearing, the topics were lacrosse. Should boys and girls play lacrosse? Is that the question that exists at the level of the US Constitution? Isn't that a matter of what you're doing at a school board, a state or a local level? But when it's played out, and of course now just opposed besides LGBTQ issues, which everybody's having different conversations about, then it becomes, oh, it's so complicated, it's dragged into an issue I'm uncomfortable with. Let's not do it. Let's wait another 100 years to figure out. But since 1923 to the days of Shirley Chisholm, this battle has gone on to ask the IRA has been introduced 1,100 times to Congress. And every time it gets close to the door, they find new rules strictly for this amendment, rules that didn't necessarily exist in any other amendment, to continue to push back the simple question, are you going to continue to not recognize half your population? Are you going to continue to pay half your population 20, 40, 50 cents below the dollar when this half of your population actually bears the economy of care? This is the population that takes care of children and seniors, but they're taking care of them not leaving with the entire dollar they actually work for. Are you going to continue to make it challenging for women who are married to veterans and soldiers, that when upon their demise, those women don't even have the right to remarry because they lose their benefits? There's a lot of things attached to what women go through, but yet are contributing factors to this country, are contributing factors to getting people elected, are a big part of what's happening with the foundational social structures, have contributed and continue to contribute. But when asked the question at the highest court, at the foundational level, can we be seen as personhood, only personhood, equal protection? Because I tell people all the time, people are like, well, Juliana, this is a moment where women are trying to be equal to men. No, another definition I like to dispel on your show. There's a grand difference between equity and equality. Equality is what you think is going on. Oh, I just want to be equal. I want the same muscles. I want the same this. I want to shave my hair. I want to be a man all day long. Manhood, manhood, manhood. That's what you think is going on. The juxtaposition between masculine and feminine. It's equal, but that equal implies that we are all equal. So therefore, when I get mine, I'm going to be on the same baseline, and that's not true. This country is nothing but bumps, ups and downs and bumps and hills. There's nobody standing really equal. But equality recognizes that I may be starting at 2 inches off the ground, the host may be standing 5 inches, you at home might be standing 10 inches. We're all standing at different places, and says that this country, based on the structure of its laws, should work to helping everybody from where they're standing hit a point of equity, at least equity of justice, equity of pay, equity of care, equity of protection under the law. It does not change any religious aspects. It does not change any of your masculinity or your femininity. It just says, under the law, can we all stand together as a communal society and have a sense of equity coming from where we are? But few people understand that, because like I said, when it comes to the issues of race and gender, it quickly gets wrangled into a social issue that is oftentimes tied to people's religious, cultural, or personal beliefs, that makes it harder for you just to see the clear question. 167.5 million women standing at the door. Are we considered people under the law or not?
And this has become, women have become a significant voting bloc in the United States in recent years. And it is hard to understand why this is not connoted to the people in Washington or the people in Atlanta sitting under the gold dome.
Well, the truth of the matter, sir, is I want you to understand that, unfortunately, and the talk that I usually try to do is, what does unity mean to equity? The concept of unity is what messes everything up, because this nation thrives on division. Mm-hmm. This issue constantly gets hit with things that make it a divisive issue, where it's dividing people between their moral norms. Do you want gay books in school or not? Because if you show us for the ERA, all the books are going to only talk about LGBTQ issues. And then it's a divisive issue. So all of a sudden, the plain question gets thrown away and we hop into the divisive issue, which makes it harder for our in the middle of the road political figures to choose. Because they're like, well, I know the plain question, but the public is, I'm going to be choosing something that's going to ruin my relationship with my pastor or my base. Right. And we don't have enough truth tellers. And I begin this conversation saying we don't have enough civic education going on to say it's a plain question. It's a very, but the ERA only has like 21, 24 words to it. It's a sentence. We're talking about a sentence. We're not even talking about a 50-page document that you have to figure out. It's one sentence that just says equal protection under the law based on yourself. That's it.
Yeah. It's for our audience here. I have it here. Let me read this for my audience. I'll tell you how simple this is, because it's not a 4 or 5 page document. Article 1 says, equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any Senate on account of sex. Section 2, the Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. Section 3, this amendment shall take effect 2 years after the date of ratification. Simple.
Well, welcome to the 100-year battle, right? So you have to see and you have to ask yourself many questions in a country that is outward facingly the leaders of Western democracy, the leaders of the free world per se. When I go overseas, many people watch the United States specifically are watching the ERA, not as a point of admiration, but as a point of hypocrisy. How can we go out into the world as a free and open democracy that says it's inclusive and it actually is utilizing its embodiment of all that is here, Black, white, Hispanic, immigrants, everybody here to make this nation what it is, to pay into the tax base, to build it up, to add to its infrastructure, add to its social structure, but yet half of the population is locked out of its foundational document for 100 years. And 100 years now, even more disgracefully because it's ratified. We have 38 states that are ratified. The president in January said he's ready to sign on. We have everything that's ready to go, except for the few who have now once again followed Ms. Shafley to find a social divisive issue and spray it right at the front of those simple words that was just read to you and say, that's the real issue. So we care about women, because funny enough, this bill was actually introduced by Republicans. It was a bipartisan. Yes. That's what makes it the irony. It was actually introduced and quite bipartisan by Republicans, right? But today, the spray paint of the social issue around it, the actual fantasizing, if you watch the hearing, the projection of all the bad and never discussing the actual good. According to one of the economic reports I read, it said by solving equity issues, the United States gained an additional $3 trillion to its GDP. It's the ultimate no-brainer that highlights what's actually happening with American democracy when it's actually being usurped by social issues that really are solved at local courts, school boards, principals, joining as student governments, things like that, all these other things that could be solved down the line, but it's playing on the fact that the average American is so overwhelmed, especially post the pandemic with life, that civic education is not normal. It's not a normal factor for most people to even know who their local anything is, commissioner, congressman. And so when it's not normal for you to know what the laws, you're just trying to survive, and we get it. And that's why this continues to kick down the road. That's why it's not in the gold dome. That's why it's not a simple question for Georgia, because it's constantly being dragged into any divisive topic that it can. And women is an easy way to drag us in. Oh, this is reproductive rights. There's nothing in that language that said reproductive rights. Oh, this is about LGBT. There's nothing in the language that says LGBT. Oh, this is really a gateway to something else. Where's the language, sir? And every time it becomes this projection of what it could be and never sticking to the reality of the words of what does it actually say and what does it actually mean.
I think this is probably one of the reasons why this goes into another question that I had, why I can't say for a better words, the old fuddy-duddies in legislatures, both statewide and national, probably there's such a movement to move them out, and I which goes to my next question: are you active in educating our children in high schools and our students in institutions of higher learning about what is necessary and about the precepts of it now?
Absolutely. I'm very active, not just working with NOW. I also have the gift of working with President Carter Center, who actually came out with an initiative during the runoff. So about a year or two ago, about the Democracy Resilience Project. I'm very active with different civic groups because I am a champion I'm a youth advocate, trying to make sure that the next generation has the tools to make better and informed decisions. See, listen, everybody has to remember that, God is a just God, meaning nobody gets to live forever. So the page must turn, whether you like it or not. All the people that are sitting in Congress can sit there forever, no matter how much they like it or not. So sometimes the best fight is not just the fight today, but it's also the fight for the future. It's with the young adults to be able to have them fully understand that by the time they're ready to take over through industry, through politics, through policy, that they should be a tool with the best amount of history to understand how to govern this society, govern themselves, and govern us who are going to be seniors at the point in time when they're at the helm. So I do try my very best to communicate and speak to schools. I work with a team of people, it's not just me alone, who are out there between the ARA Coalition and several other groups to make sure that we're constantly trying to provide good information. At least for me, I will always take for myself, and I think everybody on the team is great. I try to find information, and then when I'm done, I ask you to pick up your phone, which is the library in your hand, and Google it. Say, Juliana, I don't make no sense. I invite you to look that up. Juliana, that's not possibly true. I invite you to look it up. And spend just 30 minutes getting really civically educated for yourself, and then stop and think. Even if we, as all of us, and I'll call out my age a little bit, all those 70s babies, we have the resilience of our time to be able to make it through the reversal of certain things, because we've lived with rotary phones and kerosene lights if we're a third world country like myself. I was born in Nigeria, right? I have to look at my daughter who's born here. And I have to imagine even my granddaughter who most likely will be born here. If we don't start securing things for economically and socially for that generation, what will life actually look for them if they don't have our resilience and they don't have our knowledge? And that's what I invite people, even if you're fine with it. I'm okay. The privileges I have is A-okay. Now imagine when the privileges are rolled back, and then look at your children. Imagine when there's no affirmative action, and look at your children. Imagine when your daughter has no control of her body, then look at her again. Imagine when your son will be able to question whether he can even vote, because voter rights is on the table, and then look at your children. And if you can do that, that might give you the impetus to move my talk to the side and you to pick up the library in your hand and ask the question that you really want to ask. What's going on with equal rights in this country? You'll be blessed to have the information, and therefore know that it's time for you to go to the people that you hired. I tell people every election season, you the boss. You hire them, you fire them. If you hire them, don't be an absentee boss. Nobody does that. You would never do that in your own business. Hire a manager of your business and then go on a vacation for 4 years. Don't do that. You hire them, go back to them and say, I hired you, I voted for you to do this job. Why am I not secured and protected? And why is my daughter not secured and protected, and potentially my granddaughter? Ask them that question. When you do that, then the manager that you hire has to answer that question for you with enough strength of character and information to make sure that you're satisfied, because you're the boss. In a couple more months, in a year and a half, you're going to have to choose another big boss known as your president. And you're going to have to choose some other bosses too. You hire them. And the second thing I always tell people, don't go big, go local. Because the amount of things that are really affecting your life, from your police department to your school, you see them at the grocery store every day. You look at them all the time. Okay, they are showing up at all the social functions and you love their outfit, but you're not asking them the right question, because that's another group of people that you hired. So we have to take responsibility for what we're doing in this country and get just a little bit civic educated, just enough for you to know, at least know your management staff, meaning president, congressman, state senator, down to your commissioner, down to your school board president, down to your principal. Know your local, know your full staff at least, and know what they do. So when an issue arises, you know exactly who to call, because you hired them.
I think one of the things that was written about you was that you're passionate. I can hear the passion coming out. And for our audience, I just want you to know that this is not fantasy. This is not somebody trying to pump you up for a football game or something. This is real. We have seen it in the past year where rights, especially for women, are being eroded right now. Voting rights being eroded right now. And there's a reason for that. And it's to disempower people. And if you don't get on the case and you don't start paying attention now, it's going to be a big problem. And speaking of education, which you talk about, our viewers and listeners can go to your website, which is http://georgianow.org. Is that correct?
Yes, you can go to Georgia Now. Our website gives information about what Now is doing, and definitely we invite you to do that. Our president is featured on there. Please reach out to her. She's a great command of information. She serves here in Georgia, and she also serves on the national board in Washington, D.C. I'm here and around the state, like I said, with my my co-conspirator, Sharon J. Hill. We're effectively and aggressively trying to make sure that you guys stay educated. But outside of reaching out to us, and of course, we want to hear from you. We love you guys. We really want you to get into your boss mode. Before they start asking you to register to vote, we really, really would love for you to reach out to your state senator, to your local folks, and say, why don't I have equity rights under the law at the higher law of the land? Just ask that question and have them explain it to you from their angle. Remember, what you're listening for is the words that the actual amendment says, not the social issues. Do not get trapped in that. Once you're trapped in a social issue that has existed since the founding of our Constitution, everybody asks, like LGBTQ issues just became a thing. But what happened to Tootsie? What happened to Mr. Doubtfire? What happened to all the things that we were acculturated when we were watching all this grace and will and grace and everything else in between? During those times, they weren't the major social issue. Now, all of a sudden, they're the only social issue that exists. And I'm not saying that that's not something to be addressed. I'm a mom of a school-age child. I have lots of questions. But I asked the question to the guy I hired to deal with that question. And that person is not the Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court is a whole bunch of conservatives who are going to administer whatever that Constitution says. And I would like for that Constitution to say that we are people too. Women are people too. And that is a higher question, higher protection, higher way to talk about how our wages and what our health and what our lives and economics are going to look like than the localized question that keep coming up. So outside of really checking out Now, I really encourage everybody to listen to this, shrug your head, whatever you found interesting, Google it. The library is in your hands. And when you do, go to the people that you hired and ask them the questions that you want. It's your right, because guess what? They're going to be asking for you to rehire them again in no short order. And you have to be able to know and effectively say, wait a minute, last time I asked you a question about this, that, and the third, I didn't get an answer. Now you want my vote? You have to really do that earlier on so that they know that this is something you care about, because that's their job, is to administer the thing that you care about. And I'm inviting everybody to care about what's happening with women issues, because women, and I'll end on this, women balance things. Abraham Lincoln said, and he was quoting the Bible, Matthew, a house divided cannot stand. This nation is not going to be able to face all that's coming in our outside global challenges. We have economic challenges, workforce challenges, rising interest rates, if we continue to divide ourselves at every turn. At some point in time, somebody in this country has to say, a house divided cannot stand. We need all hands on deck to prepare the digital world, the global economy that our children and children's children are inheriting. We cannot keep having this 1972, 1923, 1876 battle discussion when we have 2030, when AI takes over and takes over 30% of your jobs, of your what they call your front-facing jobs, and starts addressing a lot of the things that are coming down the line. We have more things coming down in 2025, 2030, 2050, for us to continuously be talking about something that is obvious at this point. We need all hands on deck. We need everybody to be equal at pay and protected in order for this nation to continue to be a good nation. So that's always my biggest push for folks, is that forget everything I said, be passionate about the thing that's going to matter to you. And if you have children or nieces or nephew, any young adult you like, look at them and then ask yourself, can they survive in a world that doesn't have the same privileges that you've been afforded over the past 50 years? And if the answer is no, fight.
Miss Njoku, you are such an inspirational person. I mean, really, I'm inspired. Who inspired you? You said you were born in Nigeria and then came here to the good old US of A. What heroes do you, I guess that's the correct word, are in your life that inspired you to take the path that you're on now?
Oh man, I have so many. I would say as a physical living body, I would say probably my mom, who served as the first woman over the International Labor Organization, over all the 52 countries of Africa. Because as a single mother of 4 children, she persevered to really go after making economic and labor issues, specifically even for women, a forefront topic for her time there. But I am actually purpose driven. I have many actually physical body people that inspire me. Many people, even people that I meet every day, I'm inspired by moms, single dads, widowers who are actually trying to push forward in this hard economy. Every day I meet somebody that is my hero and my shero. But centrally in my constitution is my purpose. So that has to be, I'm inspired by my faith in God and the fact that I believe that I'm purpose driven in the sense of I believe that I'm here to try to help, to point out the way forward if I can, to find the best information and give the best that I'm supposed to offer. And that's my overall motivation. But my physical motivations are young adults. My daughter is one of my sheroes. I find it fascinating what young adults can do to you if you spend enough time with them. So for my mom, the men and women that I've met who are surviving through everything and still finding a way to put one foot forward, to create businesses, to get innovative, to push through, sheroes and heroes to me. And young adults that are still dreaming of a better world, even if they don't understand everything, they become my little baby heroes as well. So it's hard. I read a lot of good books. I know a lot of people have great insight and ideas, but man, there's nothing that beats the real life people of life. I invite people to sit in a coffee shop. I promise you, you'll find a hero and a shero you never thought about before. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm pretty much inspired by those things.
I like that. I like that. We just have a Facebook request that you can you spell out your website again?
Okay, for Georgia Now?
Yes.
It's www.georgianow, N-O-W, National Organization for Women, but N-O-W, .com, I believe, or .org.
.org, I believe it is.
.org is that, you know what I mean? And as a public speaker, mine is easy. If you ever want to reach out to me, it's just my name. It's juliananjoku.com. If you ever want to reach out to me to speak to your school, www.juliananjoku.com is my public speaking. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn and any other place for the business professionals that really want to be able to have a fair equity conversation within their corporate line. Please reach out. We need more people to just get basically educated. So I'm super excited and honored, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Time to even really approach this issue of women's issue. I think I love when men step up to the place and say, let's talk about the women, but in a way of actually highlighting the fact that we're in this too. We're a partnership. I tell people there's a big difference. I'm always breaking definitions. I'm gonna break one more definition. There's a big difference between a feminist and a womanist. Where a feminist is solely focused on what's going to happen with just women, but a womanist is actually focused on family and the balance between her relationship between men and women and what her family is all about. Women are out here fighting because we want to be able to balance our households. We want to be partners. We want to be evenly yoked with our partners, and we want to be on the front lines for our children. Not everybody's out here to create the challenge. We are really, most of us are out here to create the bond. So I'm always happy to be here when a man invites who can understand that this is about us creating a bond and reigniting the bond between us so that we can continue to create a better world for our children.
I thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Njoku. This is a conversation we need to continue throughout the year and not just in March. You have really been informative, not just for me, but for our audience. And I thank you. I'd just like to add, in case folks don't know, that the Georgia chapter of Now President would have been with us, but she is busy at the United Nations. So, but we're so glad to have you. Would you like to give us a couple of closing remarks?
Yes. Hey, thank you, everybody. I'm very, even though I cannot see you, and I don't know everybody's name, please know that a person that's interested in civil servant work is always grateful. I'm always grateful for the opportunity to be able to share something that I want you to look up, that I want you to research, that I want you to pick apart. I want you to know for yourself so you make the best decisions for yourself and your family. And I want to leave you with, if you forget everything else that we're talking about, the fact that we're in this 100-year fight is a clear indication that it's time for us to wake up, because there are other fights right behind us. Please know that it does not stop just because women are the topic today. There are other topics that are going to arise tomorrow, and this is a good time for you to start getting aware. And if you forget everything else on top of that, remember that somebody told you that you're the boss.
All right. All right.
And all these people that are out here, they work for you. Don't ever get it twisted. You'll see your mailbox full with flyers, with them petitioning, with whatever they say they're going to do and whatever resume they've had in the past, so that you can hire them again. Make sure that you vote your interests. Make sure that you hire the people that are going to maintain not just your interests, but the interests of your children. You are the boss. Make sure you know the difference to who's dealing with what issue. Get familiar to all the people, all the managers of your life, down to your local police chief, all the way up to your president. Know what they do so that you will be well informed in how you move forward. So you're the boss. We're just happy to say.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Mr. Njoku. I'm so glad we had you. So glad. I really am. Hope I'm not grinning too much, but yes, I am so happy to have had you. This is about the portion of the program where I get into my daily or my bi-monthly rant, and you're invited to stick with us if you wish. But I do want you to know that I really appreciate your being here and being with us and really making our listeners and viewers a lot more informed than they were before they tuned in. You've really provided us with a lot of information. But my rant, ladies and gentlemen, goes in with our theme today of Women's History Month. We know here, we're headquartered here in Georgia, and we know about Zernona Clayton, who I wish I had an opportunity to speak with, and former Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, one of my favorites, former Mayor Shirley Franklin, and so many more. As I said, I want to thank my guest host, Ms. Njoku. So I'm so happy that we've had a chance to meet with her. Very often, we are so busy looking back that we are blind to the present. That blindness clouds our perception of the future. That is why it is essential to keep up to date with not only history, but current events. With that in mind, please allow me to explain a little bit more about WCEG than we normally do during our broadcast. You normally hear me run through that. WCEG Talk Radio is a community-based radio and television station committed to talk programming and community empowerment events that will address the relevant components of the human experience from a holistic, diverse, and inclusive perspective. We are an empowered, focused community resource that informs, inspires, you heard that today, and motivates, you also heard that today, the community to define itself and embrace its greatness, both individually and collectively. That really encapsulates what Ms. Njoku was talking about. Our vision. We envision a financially empowered, healthier, compassionate, spiritually enlightened, and socially engaged and politically conscious community as a result of the efforts and the programming of us folks here at WCEG Talk Radio. The concept of WGEG came from a self-described serial entrepreneur. When you look at her story, you realize that despite obstacles of sexism, racism, and the death of the love of her life, she never took on the mantle of victimhood. She set life goals in her teenage years and early adulthood and pursued those goals with intelligence, perseverance, patience, and faith that God would guide her steps, even when she had no idea where those steps would lead. This receptionist for a major company in the Southeast region in the 1980s bided her time, both learned and trained and gradually rose to prominence until she reached the glass ceiling that still faces upward bound women today. Her mantra was to write her own story, that's her quote, and not allow others to determine limits, her limits. She believed in herself and ignored those who did not. Through her association with Mount Ephraim Church in 1983, she became an important factor in the success of Faith Records. That success allowed her to gain confidence and eventually retire from the corporate world to pursue her dream of independence and influence in improving the lives of those in her growing community, the worldwide community. This gospel angel grew to be the gospel diva. This was done by surrounding herself with people going in her direction or who were already where she wanted to be. Doubt never controlled her because of a simple philosophy. I like this one. Quote, a bird doesn't worry about the branch it sits on because it already has wings, end quote. She was confident in the skills she had acquired and knew that those skills prepared her to move forward and never allow doubt to be her close companion. Some of her accomplishments, and there are many more that I don't have time to state on this program. I do have a schedule here. But some of her accomplishments include co-founder and former co-owner of the Global Network One Radio, LLC, South Fulton County Chair of Organizing for Action, Executive Administrator to the pastor of Mount Ephraim Baptist Church, Chief Operating Officer of Rain Dance Films Incorporated, Chief Operating Officer of the Worldwide Community Empowerment Group Broadcasting Network, also known as WCEG Talk Radio. You know about them, don't you? Yes, indeed. That's us. That's us. Listeners and viewers, this is my big shout out to my Women's History of the Month, History Month hero, the gospel diva, Mrs. Penny Rogers. Now, she tries to hide in the background, but her business acumen and indefatigable pursuit of excellence have allowed this woman to give birth and growth to one of the most popular digital broadcast platforms in the world, not just Georgia, not just in the United States, but the world. Mrs. Rogers, I salute you. You are a beacon not only for entrepreneurship for women, but for everyone. Since I cannot clap my hands loud enough, just let me say a resounding thank you for all you have done and for all you are about to do. Look out, world. Reverend Penny Rogers is not done. She has only begun. I thank all of you listeners, and I hope to see you again on March 27th, 2023 for the next edition of Issues and Answers with Norman A. Carter Jr. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you. It's been great. I really, really have enjoyed my guests. I have enjoyed the topic of Women's History Month. It's an appreciation of over 1/2 of the population of these United States of America. And it's just been a great, great day. And I appreciate all of you, and take care of yourselves until the next installment of this program. And that's all I got, y'all. Have a good day. Take care of yourself.